And it happens year after year, anywhere and anytime. But let's say we go to the UK, and it is the week before Christmas, and a supermarket buyer in the United Kingdom fires the opening shot of a war that it will be fought with potatoes and Brussels sprouts. Let's say that, for example, Morrison's, and why not Asda, open up the day by dropping the price of the Christmas vegetables to 50 pence a pack. 2 kilos of potatoes, a kilo of carrots, that sort of thing. Within hours, the discounters fire back, announcing that the products that they have on offer at 15 pence will now cost 9. Asda immediately cuts back to 8 pence, and the rest of the discounters waste no time issuing their own press releases declaring that they are too matching the 8 pence level. A genuine power poker game played with our fruits and vegetables. And here's the strange part. All this little drama is interesting enough to land fruit and vegetables in the front pages of the press, something our sector rarely is able to manage. Why does a 7 pence difference on a bag of carrots become news? And more importantly, why are retailers so willing to lose money on the very products that you and I work so hard to grow and sell? That, my friends, is the story of the lost leader. The paid product, if you want. It is one of the most fascinating and most painful value phenomena in our entire business. So let me explain why your product sometimes becomes the cheese in someone else's mousetrap, and why that is both a curse and, believe it or not, it could also be a blessing. I'm David Del Pino and this is Fresconomics. Welcome to the fresh produce business, a world where uncertainty is the only constant and volatility shapes every decision. Every day, remarkable people navigate this chaos with skill and courage. Join me as we explore the hidden logic of this industry to decode what others call unpredictable. Let me begin with a question that has nothing to do at first sight with fruits and vegetables. Why do some stories make the news and others don't? Journalists work, whether they say it out loud or not, with a mental checklist of what they call news values. There is no single official list, but the usual ingredients are well known. For newsworthiness, it has to be happening now. Next, probably is relevance. It has to affect or interest a large group of people. Then probably is proximity. It happened nearby. Novelty, of course. It needs to be unusual. Also, magnitude. It needs to be big or serious, and almost always some kind of conflict. Mix several of these ingredients together and you have a good story. And it turns out that these ingredients combine beautifully when Christmas arrives and the festive vegetable offers begin in those markets where our products still drive the frequency of shopping trips. A price war is a conflict. A penny-by-penny duel between supermarket giants is of course, magnitude and novelty. And the fact that it is the potatoes for your Christmas dinner makes it relevant to absolutely everyone. The press, the media, could not ask for more. But beneath the entertaining surface of that poker game with sprouts and potatoes, there is a piece of cold, deliberate strategy. That sequence of events I described in the episode introduction is a textbook definition of a loss leader, or bait product, you name it. One of any retailer's central obsessions is getting people through the door. What the trade calls footfall, the frequency with which consumers visit the store. The underlying theory is disarmingly simple. If we can just get you inside, you will end up buying something, and probably quite a lot of something. Many strategies exist to achieve just this, and one of the most powerful ones are the loss leader. the loss leader pricing strategy. The implementation is straightforward to describe and somewhat brutal in practice. You take a leader product and you sell it at a very low price, below market price, sacrificing your margin and quite often selling it at an outright loss, hence the name, a product that leads the consumer in sold at a loss. For the trick to work, the product has to meet two conditions at once. It must be relevant enough for the people to genuinely want it, and it must be offered at a price so unbeatable that creates an irresistible pull, an exaggerated perception of value in the mind of the consumer. 15 pence for 2 kilos of tomatoes. I am running to the store now. The retailer is perfectly willing to lose money on that single line, in the firm belief that the loss will be more than recovered through everything else you drop in the trolley once you're inside. And there is no moment in the calendar when this logic burns brighter than Christmas. No retailers on earth wants to be the one store a family doesn't visit during the festive season. Get them in with a bait and they will leave having bought the high margin items they never planned to buy. Sales go up, total margin goes up, everybody at the head office is happy. Now, why does this work so well on fruits and vegetables specifically? To answer that, we have to borrow a concept from behavioral economics, a field that I have talked about before in this podcast. Retailers use the loss leader to anchor consumer expectations about their prices. Anchoring is that well-documented mental shortcut by which the first number we are given becomes the reference point against which we judge everything else. When you sell a particular product cheaply week after week in the same store, the customer's brain quietly files away a conclusion. This is what the product is worth, and this is the shop, the store where it is always cheap. So let's go to such and such supermarket because that product is always cheaper there. For that anchor to set, the product can't be some rare exotic item bought twice a year. It has to be something consumed regularly, so the flow of cheap supply and therefore the cheap reference price can be sustained over time. In other words, the ideal loss leader is a product that behaves like a commodity and that for one cultural reason or another has captured the attention of consumers in that particular market. And here is a detail I find generally delightful. The chosen product is not the same everywhere. It is culturally driven. In some Scandinavian markets, the traditional bait is the banana. In some Anglo-Saxon markets, it is the humble potato that mobilizes the shopper. The same strategic mechanism dressed in completely different local clothes. A reminder that even something as cold as a pricing tactic or a strategy is filtered through the habits and history of each society. So far this might almost sound clever and harmless. A bit of festive theater that gets us in the papers. It is not harmless, right? But the loss leader strategy carries serious risk, and the deepest of them land directly on the suppliers and producers. But let's start with the risk the retailer themselves faces, because they explain why a product gets chosen in the first place. The first danger is the customer who walks in, picks up only the bait, and walks straight back out. The supermarket is left with a loss and nothing else in the basket to compensate it. The second danger is hoarding. Faced with an offer so far outside the normal market, some consumers and even professionals such as caterers and restaurateurs buy enormous quantities either to consume over time or even to resell it at exactly the margin the supermarket has just thrown away. Retailers have learned to defend themselves against both. They cap the quantity each shopper can buy, let's say a maximum of 3 packs per customer, and more cleverly, they choose perishables as their bait. And what is more perishable than fruits and vegetables? A bag of potatoes or a panet of sprouts cannot be stockpiled in the garage for 6 months or quietly resold next quarter. The product's own short shelf life becomes the barrier against holding and resale. Our greatest weakness, perishability, of course, is precisely the property that makes us the perfect bait. There is a bitter irony in that, and it is worth sitting with for a moment. But the truly lasting damage is not the retailer's risk. It is what happens to the value of the product itself, permanently. As consumers grow accustomed to a stable and extremely low reference price, no perception of value sets in from which the product never recovers. I want to be precise about that word. Never. The anchor doesn't reset when the promotion ends. It stays. And once it's set, everyone in that product's value chain, grower, packer, middleman, marketeer, sees their profitability permanently compromised. This is the same anchoring poison I described in the episode on promotions, only more chronic. A promotion is an occasional shock to the price-value relationship. A loss leader is a continuous one. The consumer's brain learns that the low price is the fair price, and the normal price, not so normal anymore, is a kind of punishment. Over time, the normal price simply stops being credible. And these strategies have driven a rapid commoditization of the fruits and vegetables that are caught up in them. Volumes, of course, volumes sold rise spectacularly. That part is real. But many retailers end up passing the price pressure straight back to the chain, to suppliers, and to producers. The buyer's logic is inescapable. I'm losing money on this to bring people into my store, so you, supplier, are going to help me carry that cost. There is a phrase I use in the book that I think captures this perfectly. In The Loss Leader, the poison of unprofitability creates its own antidote. What do I mean by that? When there are no economies of scale large enough to absorb the price pressure, the market doesn't simply collapse. It mutates. New structures appear. Wholesalers, importers, ripeners, and packers, middlemen who reorganize themselves around a brutal new level of efficiency and low cost. Precisely because that is the only way to survive at the price that the bait demands. The unprofitability, in a sense, breeds the very organizations capable of enduring it. Sometimes the retailer and the supplier reach an understanding. The retailer takes the hit on that one product, but compensates the supplier with extra business or on other items. But that is a negotiated truce, not a happy ending for any of the parts. Now, you might be thinking the obvious solution is simply to refuse to sell at a loss. Some retailers operate exactly on that principle, under what is called everyday low prices strategy, keeping shelf prices flat so the consumer perceives the brand as consistently cheap. It sounds elegant, but here is the trap that I am never tired of pointing out. Fruits and vegetable volumes and prices are not stable and cannot be made stable because supply is governed by the harvest, the weather, and the seasons, and the pests, and the diseases, and so many other things. So my point is that the volatility does not vanish under everyday low price strategy. It is simply pushed up the chain onto the producer, camouflaged rather than cured. With the everyday low price strategy, refusing to sell at a loss when we face the harvest peaks and failing to run the one promotion that would actually clear our stock also hurts us. Selling at a loss, it turns out, is as necessary as it is dangerous. It is virtue and sin holding hands. There is one more mechanism worth naming, because it is the thread that ties the bait price on the shelf to the price in your pocket as a grower. To keep their fruit and vegetables display attractive, retailers make sure their prices are never too far from those of their direct competitors. That is a practice known as price matching. That is exactly what I mentioned in the introduction. 15 pence, 9 pence, 8 pence, match, match, match. And every penny of that downward race has to come from somewhere. It might transfer onto the purchase price paid to suppliers. So the real reference for that purchase price is set in what I call in the fresh market, like in every other product. And the pressure flows upstream until it reaches the most fragile link in the chain, which is far too often the producer. So let me give you the hard practical conclusion before I soften it. If you are working in a market where your product has become a loss leader, fighting for margin is, frankly, a losing battle. If you do not hold cost leadership and the economies of scale needed to lead on price, prepare to suffer. The profitability of your business is in real danger and lasting danger. And that is not pessimism, it is a map. Knowing you are standing on that particular patch of ground is the first step to deciding where you dig in, differentiate, or move. And now, as promised, the blessing, because it would be unlike me to leave you only with a curse. Here's the thing. The very reason our products get singled out for this kind of punishment is also the source of one of our greatest strengths. Fresh produce generates more footfall and a higher frequency of visits than almost anything else in the store. We are perishable, so we must be bought again and again, week after week. That is exactly why retailers are willing to bleed margin on us, not because we are worthless, but because we are powerful enough to move people in. This is also why we are so central to a retailer's image. Think about where the fruit and vegetable section sits in almost any modern supermarket. It has been moved quite deliberately to the very front of the store. The first thing you see, the calling card, the handshake at the door. An attractive, cheap, and cheerful produce display is what tells the shopper in a single glance what kind of a store this is. Even the discounters, once the undisputed kings of, will drop any product the moment its price ticks up, have come to understand that it is their fresh produce that differentiates them. In today's supermarket, the fruit and vegetable section is the most differential element of the whole store, and is the hottest battleground of competition, of course, a wall away from the anonymous commodity aisles. So yes, we are the bait, but we are the bait because we are important. We are important, my friends, and I know that sometimes that is a cold comfort when you're staring at a purchase order price below your cost of production. But it is a genuine strength, and one worth remembering, especially in the very seasons like Christmas, when the punishment feels heaviest. The same trait that makes us vulnerable is the one that put us at the front door of every store in the country. Used well, that is not a weakness to mourn. It is a position of relevance to build on. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I invite you to subscribe to Fresconomics on your favorite platform. You can find me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and even on YouTube. And remember to share it with others. Help me connect with the community of professionals in the fresh produce industry. Although it may take a while, I promise to respond to any questions, contributions, or suggestions you may send to web@daviddelpino.com. And of course, you can also visit my blog at daviddelpino.com, where you'll find out how to get a copy of the book Fresconomics, along with articles and additional content. Until next time, take care and try to enjoy this crazy business.